Okay, hello, good evening. Here's the long-awaited video for specialization in trade for the secretary and lawyer. I know some of you were having problems with it. You guys are gonna kick yourself in the butts when you realize how ridiculously simple this was in some ways. A lot of it's just about reading and not stressing and trying to, really focus on what the problem's asking. And then some of it's compounded by me getting used to the way that I can input possible answers when I do those multiple fill in the blanks. I can't give a range. So normally when I ask you a problem and there's a single fill in the blank for a number, I can say, oh, well, there's a fudge factor of 0.5% or whatever. In the case of multiple fill in the blanks, it's very literal. I have to have every possible answer you guys put in. And it doesn't help when yours truly is a dumb butt and puts in rounding errors, puts in 66.66 as the rounding for 66.666666, which really would, as many of you correctly did, round to 66.67. So, some of it was compounded by just technical difficulties and me being silly and making some mistakes, but the rest of it's really, well, heck, I lost something, so just a second. Let's make sure we can get back on here. Okay. So anyway, the rest of it's, some of it's just some of you overthinking of it, and some of it is, you're new to it and you still are learning and you're trying to figure out what everything is. And there's a lot of concepts thrown together, especially in the summer. So, it is a difficult problem at the end of the day, but it's subtly difficult. And, that's how it normally is. Sometimes the hardest problems are the ones that are the easiest. So if we look at, so I just want to let you guys know, I'm just looking at my sheet right here. So I just drew up an answer key. So I'm just going to go through the answers really quick. So all you need to do these problems is actually the table, the initial table that says secretary, 2 briefs per hour, lawyer, 6 briefs per hour. If the secretary types 100 pages per hour, if the lawyer types 200 pages per hour. So the first question, number 7, it literally is just a new table, and it says, look, if the secretary gives up writing 2 briefs, how much typing can they do? So we go to that top table and we see that if the secretary has 2 choices, they can either write 2 briefs, or they can do 100 pages typed per hour, or they can do something in between. So in this case, we're asking them, if you give up everything, right? Don't write any briefs, just focus on typing. What can you type? Well, if you don't do 2 briefs, you can type 100 pages per hour. So you put in that top box right there, 100, right? Then we go to the next line, it's the lawyer. And with the lawyer, we're asked the question, if the lawyer does 2 briefs, how many pages can they not type? And so this one, we need to do a little calculation, but not too much. So we see that the lawyer can do 6 briefs per hour or 200 pages typed per hour. If the lawyer only gives up 2 briefs or does 2 briefs, then that's equivalent to 1/3 of 6, right? So 6 divided by 3 is 2. And so if we take 200 and we divide by 3, what do we end up with, right? So if we take 200 divided by 3, we end up with 66.66666666 typed pages, right? Or 66 2/3. Can you get out, bud? Sorry, guys, that's my little guy. I'm at home right now. So if we look at that, what's really happening, if the lawyer does 2 briefs, then they give up 66 2/3 pages typed. Now, what we're doing down here, I didn't ask you, I gave you this answer on the table I drew up, is 2 briefs not typed plus 2 briefs typed is equal to no gains, right? We get 2 briefs either way. The question is, if they're substituting out, right? The lawyer substitutes out for the secretary what they're relatively good at. What's the gains from trade in this system? And so we end up with 100 plus negative 66 2/3, and we end up with 33 1/3 or 33.33 as our final change in the number of typed pages. Okay. And all we did to get all of that information is look at the top table, right? Look at that top information and just calculate out the amounts that were the relative changes. In fact, the 100 plus pages for the secretary comes right from the table, no modification necessary. The rest is just a ratio, right? So we solve for the missing ratio. So literally, in case you guys forget this from math, we say that the lawyer could have done 200 pages or 6 briefs, and I'll show you the math I'm doing through really quick here. And we're saying that they're going to do 2 briefs, so how many pages does that equal? And so we just set up this ratio, and if you guys are forgetting, all you do is cross multiply and divide. So you take 200 times 2 over 6 equals 400 divided by 6. And let me get out my handy calculator because I'm normally just solve it in my head, but let's just do it because I know the answer. But anyway, x equals. And unfortunately, on these quizzes, we can't enter 2/3, so we have to convert it to 66.66 or 67. Okay, so that's how we calculate the number of typed pages given up. We just set up the ratio. And by the way, that's actually how we do all of these problems, for better or worse, when we're talking about calculating the gains from trade and comparative advantage and opportunity cost, if we can't brute force it. So the next one, number 8, it says, suppose that the terms of trade or the price is 2.5 briefs per 100 pages typed. Now, the hardest part about this is you guys aren't used to living in a barter economy, so you're not used to playing with it this way. But literally the first question is, then the secretary could get 2.5 briefs from the lawyer for every 100 pages he types, which is a gain of how many briefs over spending an hour on briefs himself. So let's look back at our chart. We see that the lawyer, if the lawyer gets 200 pages, it's 6 briefs. If they only get 100 pages, it would cost them 3 briefs of their own time, right? They'd have to give up a half hour of time to type that 100 pages. So if we take that the lawyer on their own could do 3 briefs per half hour, if they're able to get 2.5 briefs for 100 typed pages, then they're getting, then the secretary is getting, sorry, did this from the wrong direction, works out exactly opposite, negative 0.5. But anyway, the secretary, what's happening for the secretary? The secretary does 2 briefs per 100 pages typed. Now they're getting 2.5. All you have to do, fairly simple math, 2.5 minus the 2 that they could have done on their own means that they're better off by 0.5, right? Oh. Okay. Then we end up with the next question. The lawyer could get 100 pages for every 2.5 briefs she writes. So in order to get 200 pages from the typist, she would need to write how many briefs? Well, if it's 100 pages for 2.5, then 200 pages are going to be double that, so 5. So 5 briefs, and she saved her how much time? Well, if she wanted 200 pages on her own, the lawyer and the table at the top would have to do 6 briefs. Instead, she's only paying 5, so she gets to keep 1, right? Okay. And then the last question is, who has the absolute advantage? And the absolute advantage is going to be the lawyer. So anyway, you guys could take a screenshot of this, kind of just give you my thoughts on the issue. But, you know, at the end of the day, the problem kind of fell out of itself. Some of you were overthinking it. And as I said, I do realize it's new material. You guys have only been in the class for a week. Some of you have only been actively in the class for less time than that. It's not easy material. This is some of the harder material in economics, micro or macroeconomics. But hopefully this was helpful for you guys. Just do check out the YouTube channel because there are a lot of old, and I know I put some links in some of the Piazza posts. There are some old micro and macroeconomic office hours where I go through how to calculate comparative absolute advantage for a lot of different problems. So you guys can look at those examples as well. Anyway, just want to give you a quick update. I'll be putting up, I've already put up some study material for tonight. I'll probably put up a few more videos from the Marginal Revolution University. And then I'll start putting up set problems tomorrow. There's going to be a bunch of them, so it's taking me some time to get them all typed up and coded. And I'm sure we'll have some fun problems with you guys entering in the correct answer, but not the way I thought you'd put it in. So we'll try to keep that as clean as possible. I think I might do some multiple choice on that one because that seems to be the simplest solution. But anyway, that's where that is. But you guys can start studying if you're already ahead. And if you're still working, finish up. This next section is really long. It's the meat and potatoes of economics, whether you're in micro or macro. And microeconomics, we've got supply and demand. In macroeconomics coming up, we're going to have a bunch of material related to how to calculate GDP, unemployment, inflation rates. So for either class, this is going to be the largest tranche, the largest amount of material you're possibly going to see the whole semester. So just keep that in mind. I do play it up by year when I'm teaching the class. If I see a lot of people really are struggling and it's taking longer, we just add on days, because this next tranche of material for both classes is really the most important thing that you need to get out of the class before you leave the semester. It's what every future econ class you take, if you take one, they're going to expect you know. And it's if you told someone you took economics, it's what micro or macroeconomics, it's what they'd expect you to have learned in the class beyond anything else, and it's what people normally remember. So we'll spend pretty much as much time as necessary, well, within reason. But I'm planning on the syllabus a week and a half. I know in the past it's taken 2.5 weeks sometimes to get through the material in the summer. It is brutal, but we'll just cut some material off the end if we need to. Once again, just do your best. And it's, don't stress on things. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to try your best. The best thing you can do to help me out if you're struggling is to work on the problems. Then I can log in and I can see what you answered and how you were trying to answer the problems. I can also tell when you're just randomly guessing too. But it helps me to see how you're trying to solve the problems and see where you're going wrong. So anyway, have a good evening. Talk to you later. Bye.